welcome to the first episode of the Star Wars Squadrons Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Timebomb, and my other host here with me, Greenfoxleader.
What's going on?
Hey man, good to do this finally. We talked about it for so long, and finally we're getting it done.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we've been busy, doing a bunch of other stuff, and it's nice to kind of slow down for a second.
Well,
some of the stuff we've done and stuff we're gonna do and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Well, for this first episode, what I really want to do is kind of just talk to you about how you kind of got the idea and how, because not just you, there's other people as well who are involved, but I want to talk about how you kind of got involved with kind of starting Star Wars Squadrons. First of all, what was your background? How did you get into a flight sim game? Were you playing them before?
Ooh, yeah. I'm pretty geezerly. I'm gonna be hitting 38 later this winter. But yeah, it's growing up with the early stages of consoles back in, pull the Atari out of the attic, fishing out the Nintendo from the older cousins and the older brothers. Got the Super Nintendo brand new, age 10, 1993, whatever like that.
Jeez.
And so, having played Star Fox in its original form, beating all 3 paths within a month or something, right? So feeling pretty good about that. And progressing pretty heavy down a sci-fi path, I guess you'd say. Star Wars and Star Trek and all the rest of the, franchises that are out there, part of my shit for a long time. And I've been a Greenfoxleader for, long time, which is almost a mashup of Star Fox and Star Wars in some ways.
That makes sense. I never put it together, but that's the history of it, of the Greenfoxleader.
Yeah. And, there's always Freelancer series growing up through the 90s, and Robert's early works with Mark Hamill even embedded into the game itself. And then in recent times, Star Citizen and Elite Dangerous and other large-scale space sims that you end up using, joysticks and HOTASs and various toys and tools and Track IR and Voice Attack and other cool science fiction, doodads and whatnots. So yeah, always had a pretty rich history in sci-fi in general, spaceship combat, 6 Degrees of Freedom, fighter combat specifically. And X-Wings have always been one of the pinnacles of the expression of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hopping in an X-Wing and TIE. And I think once this game came out, it was a no-brainer. I've been waiting around for Star Citizen for 7 years, what's the point in waiting when we've got something juicy like this right in front of our face? So it was time to jump.
Because I'm coming from such a different place where I hadn't played any flight sim games. Like, the only flight game that I was ever into was Rogue Squadron on, like, the N64, which is a classic Star Wars and flight game for sure at that point. I mean, that game, still, I feel like people would pay for, like, an updated version on modern consoles of it.
Yeah.
But just that, going from there to Star Wars Squadrons is quite the leap, though, for me. So it's a different thing. I had a couple of friends who were like, hey, try out this game. Let's get this when it comes out. And I was like, I guess I'll try it out. I feel like now none of them really even play the game, but it's my main game. So now I kind of have found this larger community, the competitive scene, and met different people that way. So when the game was announced, what was your initial thought? What were you thinking about it? And how did you kind of want to get a competitive scene going? Did you see that there wasn't a place for it? How did it kind of come together?
Yeah, man, that's a good question. I think when we first heard about it in like June and July, right? So it was maybe late June, hearing about it, July starting to plan and seriously take some action around stuff. And just like you, I kind of knew that I had some friends that even had told me about it first, but they probably wouldn't be 6 months later. And maybe their hearts weren't in the same place or the passion towards the same things. So, it's not necessarily leaving anybody behind, but it's also limiting yourself towards new experiences. So, I felt like there wasn't any better time. I'm getting old. See it another 3D, VR capable, joystick ready X-Wing flight sim game that is of the same caliber. And as soon as we heard that it was 5v5 with spectator mode, it was a no-brainer. That thing is built to be an esport game. And really as a flight sim guy and a space sim guy specifically, nothing's really been satisfying that itch, that kind of Battlefield, Call of Duty, getting into the trenches with some space combat. Even the Elite Dangerous close quarters combat kind of wasn't, it was basically empty after a month and never really regained its popularity. So there is plenty of PvP space combat, but there hasn't been a competitive PvP space combat. If you go where you pit two teams that are, theoretically playing together a lot against each other in the same kind of way, or any other competitive game. There hasn't been a structure built around that. So as soon as I saw this, it's like, whoa, not only are we getting a new Swing vs. TIE Fighter game, but it's a 5v5 with spectator mode and a tactical map. And it's like, whoa, okay, that's different. And I was like, okay. So when you asked, like, what's the first things I did, first things that we got accomplished was immediately went into recruiting mode. Because I figured with space sim background, with other people's, flight sim and space sim capabilities, we could probably put together a team that could be pretty heavily reckoned with. And I think we did a good job at that. But then very quickly after creating the group that was later to be known as Aces 5.
What were they called at first?
At first, we would just call ourselves the Elite Digital Pilots Group. We only pulled in certain people that had,
Well, slow down a little bit. Okay, when you say you first started it, like how did you go about it? You found out about the game. Were you playing other flight sim games, and you talked to people in those communities? How did you go about building that first team?
The first team, basically, I got a little bit too big for my britches and started recruiting for a pro level flight sim. And I said, this is going to be an esports game. I'm going after a pro level flight sim team now. Like, who's ready to hop on the bandwagon? Who's got their 10,000 hours on it? Who knows space sim combat almost better than airplane combat? And who's ready to go for that? And I think, some people that are still with us today got a hold of me very, very early. And even, big dogs within the org, like Javen and some other guys, were there pre-launch. And a lot of us were playing Elite Dangerous like weeks before, at least a week before the game actually came out. So we had a little bit of team, cohesion. Already had some pretty big plans for the future, even though none of those plans were even on the horizon.
What were
sniff of custom matches, not even a sniff of tool sets we would need to carry out some of the events. And really, that's where it all kind of transitioned from, like, what's the point in building a team? Why even build a pro-level esports flight sim team when there's not any events to compete in? And really, if you look at what's the difference between an esports game and a non-esports game, somebody's got to win something that shows they're the best in something, right? And so, like, we're like, okay, again, what's the point in putting all these people together and gathering all this talent if you don't have something to win or something to fight for or any path towards getting that esports reality that we want to see? So that's when really we birthed the Calrissian Cup. So that's something I brought to the table to this coalition of servers that we had gotten together, because we had a little bit of vision that if we potentially united all the big pre-launch coalition of servers together, we could have maybe a one community, one voice type thing towards patch notes and balance passes. And we haven't even needed to actually implement any of those systems yet, or really have that direct dialogue with any kind of developers per se. Everything gets filtered up through the masses usually enough, and Motive is one of the most responsive dev teams I've seen in a hot minute.
It's been
it's
been incredible because it seems like every change they've made with each update of the game has been pretty much like they're just like, wait, what do they want? Okay, yeah, let's give them that. And
let's give them that. Yeah.
That's kind of,
I don't know if that's, yeah.
It's kind of been their prerogative kind of the whole way. But I kind of want to take this back a little bit too here. So when you're talking about you decided to make that, like, we're building this team, but what are we building it for? Were you then, when you made that step, okay, did you decide we're going to make an event and make the Discord server? When did you create the Discords? Did this Discord server come first, or the idea for the Calrissian Cup? Maybe I'm getting ahead here. How did that come along?
Yeah, the Calrissian Cup definitely came first. That was an idea we birthed as early as July 15th or something, July 17th. So right after we had the first meeting between all the leadership from all the different servers, Discord servers that is, in relation to pre-launch Squadrons community, we talked about, hey, now even we got this group of leadership from the together. What do we do what do we do with them if we're not suggesting any patch notes because the game hasn't even come out yet? Then what's the point of having this behind the scenes coalition? And so the Calrissian Cup is something I brought up as this is a cool name, a cool feel, doing the carbonite encased trophy instead of Han Solo. It's got a little bit of cheeky vibe. It's got a little bit of scoundrel vibe. It's also got a bit of a official kind of Cloud City, nice in-lore Star Wars event kind of feel too. So I think everyone got behind the Calrissian Cup early, and that spawned a lot of talks throughout the summer with a lot of different groups about formats. This is custom matches, right?
This is before the game has even been released, and you guys are trying to you're trying to figure out the formats for it. It's gonna have a dogfight.
Yeah, man. It's having foresight into what's going to happen and the kind of timeline around stuff, and we knew there wasn't going to be any custom matches for a hot minute. So we're coming up with all these crazy point systems, all kinds of multipliers, crazy, just like everything you can think of as far as options on the table for how to determine one team is better than another team. Not having any tools or API or anything, right?
So back then, did you know that fleet battles was going to be a possibility as a competitive mode? Was that was known sort of? I couldn't even remember at that point if the different modes were known.
No, yeah, back then we knew that there was basically just dogfights and fleet battles, and we knew fleet battles was the main mode of the game, and we designed most of the point systems around fleet battles. So but we spent probably 2 months hacking over different formats before the game even came out, and then once the game came out, it was time to start testing stuff. At the same time as started having a need to test things, it was also when Swift, among other people from the Rocket League community, approached us with the idea about this 5-mans thing that is very similar to 6-mans and 4-mans from the advanced pro scene in Rocket League. So when everybody hits Grand Champion, it's like, what do you do then? Now you got to go scrim up against the other Grand Champions and see who's the grandest of the grandest. So that above the in-game ranking system and ways to figure that out with the S-style, Japanese S-style ranking system that they use in, I think, tennis, chess, a couple other different competitive outlets, trying to figure out how to, when the game itself values potentially playtime and other things than what head-to-head scrim outcome would show. And I'm not trying to say that it's no one's trying to devalue the cosmetics get at the Galactic Ace grind or whatever, right? And there is a lot of true value to that.
There's like 8 people who are going to get that.
But is that the same as the standings you would have in a head-to-head environment? I'm not sure.
No,
I think that's what 5-mans and 6-mans and 4-mans explores. In a pure head-to-head competitive environment, where are you really at on the leaderboards, and what do those leaderboards look like? And it's probably not an in-game construct.
There's no comparison either. Like when you play just a random drop-in of dogfights, you're just like, I don't know, I can dominate, whatever, do play pretty well, go 10-2 or something like that. But then you play in the 5-mans weekly dogfights, and it's just it's a whole other world where you just see the skill level as the next step up, right? So it's definitely created that environment. You've definitely gotten, I think, the most competitive players in the game pooled together in the 5-mans. How quick? Because I think the one thing to remember though too is when the game came out, the ranking system was bugged. There was 35,000 people at that point playing. Now we're looking at more 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 tops now. So did you see growth in the 5-mans as the game was declining? How did that impact it? I'm just curious at the start.
No. Yeah, it's very interesting because the game lost 90% of its player base, right? It went from 35,000 concurrent players the first couple of days to less than 2,000. And so it's interesting, at the same time, those people that were still playing and that have been grinding that whole time kept running into each other. They kept, potentially matching up each other just randomly, periodically. And you end up seeing the same sweaty people here and there, you know what I mean? And eventually, the growth on the scrim scene was birthed out of the tests that we were doing. Because we were trying to test the format for the Calrissian. So we kept slamming heads, force queuing 2-packs, force queuing 3-packs, force queuing 5 packs, and then eventually it was like, yo, this force queue and 5 packs is working pretty good. Why don't we all just like meet up on a Saturday night and try it out, you know? So the Power Hour was basically birthed within I can't remember, but a couple weeks. And it's funny because it all happened as the game was severely declining in population. So like it was going down and down and down, but 5-man scrims, the tests we were doing, were going up and up and up.
And maybe
so it's just interesting.
Maybe that helped, like maybe that helped keep that small player base that was remaining there, the competitive part of it, because they at least had something to do. I remember, from my experience, coming the other way, I had met you like in a game like day 1 or 2, actually, just randomly. You were in game chat, which seems weird. Probably you're probably not never in actual game chat now, and so I don't know. We were just chatting, and you talked about the Calrissian Cup, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Who's Greenfoxleader? Who's this guy? And then I don't know. But then randomly a few weeks later, as my friends weren't playing as much, I started joining more Discords. And I was in the Star Wars Squadrons one, and maybe Gray Squad, and some other ones where you just kind of network to like meet different people. And someone was just like, "Oh, did you watch the Power Hour?" I was like, "What's the Power Hour?" And like, "Oh, it's like competitive." And I was like, "Oh, rip!" I was just like, "Oh, that's awesome." And then I was like, "Oh, you get in there, and then you get to see that there's all the different teams, and there's the recruiting." And it just opens up kind of like a different world of Squadrons. I think I feel like that's where the game really is. You kind of have to be in on the Discords, kind of networking with the different teams there, and I think 5-man's is one of the best hubs for that, actually.
Yeah, if you're into that kind of weekly play, daily play, bi-weekly scrims, for sure. Because we don't really, at least in America, we have less and less bowling leagues and softball tournaments and shit we're going to right now. So it's nice having that kind of stable social element that you can hit up every once in a while, even if it's just flying some X-wings for a little bit. And also, I think you're right. 5-man's is a place where you can at least find other squads that are active, which is nice. Because there's not really, as there's, and probably everybody knows, there's not an in-game system for finding a squad besides just press play on a quick match, and
you can't even
cross your fingers it's not a level 1 or level 2.
You can't even send someone a message. Like, I wish I could, so I've had people, I'll add people to like those random people you meet and stuff too. I'll try to tell them on game day, like, go to Discords. I feel like the Star Wars Squadrons official Discord, which was pretty active for the first month, is kind of dead now. It's hard to meet people there, so they kind of have to go to the subreddits, read the posts to know to go to those ones. So that's the one thing. It's just getting the word out there for the community about it, just so they all know that they can go to like that one place, which is, I mean, you're doing a great job with it. It's just, that's something that has, it's an inefficiency in the game that we can't kind of tell everyone about that.
Yeah. And we're working on stuff. We're working on like cross server, looking for group bots. We're working on a new player pipeline that allows people to find, if you feel like you're Imperial leaning, here's the pipeline to be a dope Imperial pilot. If you feel like you're feeling like Vanguard Squadron, here's like a direct Discord invite to Vanguard Squadron. But it's going to take a while to get set up, and hopefully by Christmas, right after Christmas, the thing is pretty smooth and people have a way to find a 5-man squad. But it's difficult. It's not as easy as just a pickup game for Warzone, because it's all about squad composition and theoretically formation flying, and theoretically all this other stuff like a strategic long-term plays that you do, like Blue 42 hike kind of plays.
Well, I mean, the advantage of having the private matches in the game. Once they have them, people can work on those things at the next level. But that's the other thing. You're planning these tournaments. At what point did you realize, or did you know that there wasn't going to be private matches on launch? When did you find that out? Did you know beforehand, or at what point did you realize?
Yeah. No, they've been telling us pretty heavily that at this time we have no plans for private matches. So that told us a couple of things back in the day. It told us that probably at launch we weren't going to have the tools we wanted to do something like the scope of the Calrissian Cup. And also it told us B, that it's not out of the realm of the equation. And so like it wasn't something that we needed to keep harping on, nor was it something we needed to completely put over our heads as impossible and not have any hope built around because of the way they worded that. At this time, we have no plans, blah, 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 blah. So we kept seeing that message about 4 or 5 times from July all the way up until launch, all the way up past launch. So that told us a bunch of different things. And I think, you know, creating the non-toxic competitive environment that we did, the majority of good games and firm handshakes going around the table went a long way to convincing the powers that be to give us those kind of tool sets this early in the game. Like I said, 2 something months after launch, it's almost unheard of, even for a big dog game, even for, you know, games that should have private matches. And admittedly, this is one of those games. Like, this is one of those games obviously that have custom matches.
And I think that was a lot of people's complaints
Yeah.
about the game coming out, because the thing that they kind of hung their hat on was that it was this, like, you know, peer versus peer competitive game. This is it. So people were kind of surprised that if you're going to make a game like that is competitive, and that's the purpose of it, that you're not going to have private matches to facilitate an esports scene.
Yeah.
Like, it seemed weird, but luckily something happened because of those people. Apparently the game did better than they expected it was going to do, because they I mean, they made so many plans and so many changes here that they said, just like you said, it wasn't outside of the realm of possibility that they would make these changes and implement new content and updates into the game, but it wasn't something they promised. So something must have happened. The game must have done better than they expected. They may have seen that the community was active, because what I think happened was, because of the 5-man's community, you know, committing to doing Wednesdays and Saturdays for the first, you know, whatever it was, after the first 3 weeks of the game, from until the, you know, through November there, they saw that, and because of that, the New Republic, another Discord server, they planned a tournament, and you were involved in the planning with that as well, I'm sure. No, I mean, obviously they were leading it, but I think you were helping out as well. How involved were you in the New Republic tournament?
Oh, I was the camera guy, and really I was just kind of a semi consultant at the last stage of trying to help with operations, productions. But also, let's not forget about Operation Ace 1 that came out October 10th, so 8 days after launch.
Of course.
Also, showed the potential of there being an audience for watching. You know, watching people do stuff in squadrons, because really it's like,
I did forget about
unless
that.
there's content. Yeah, unless there's content for people to watch, there won't be any audience on Twitch or YouTube or whatever. It's hard to just watch pub games, you know, public scrims all day, you know, that don't have any stake on the line, or you don't know who the players are, or, you know what I mean? There's no drama there. There's no cool stuff to watch or anything like that. So I think it was important having events of any kind. And so playing the Calrissian Cup early, seeding in people's minds, executing on Operation Ace with Boomstick and the way they pulled that off with full overlays and everything, and it was a well-done event.
So that,
and then that followed up by the New Republic tournament, you know.
let's actually take it back 1 second. The Operation
Yeah.
Ace tournament was a tournament specifically for content creators, right? Like, there was that was the way it was set up. So I think that was actually a great way to kind of, you know, show fleet battles, because it is a great mode to show, and the spectate mode in Star Wars Squadrons is awesome. How you can go into the third person view of the ships that you don't even get when you're playing the game. Now,
Yeah, man.
then when they did the Operation Ace tournament, they did force queues too, so they were forcing their matchups and fleet battles against each other.
Yeah.
So they,
Well, I think they, at the time, like, we were still testing at the time. That was only 8 days after launch, right? So I think they didn't even quite know how many successful 5v5 matches they were going to get. But they ended up pulling out, I think, 4 or 5 successful head-to-head queues just by queuing up at the top of the hour, right? They just went at the same time and said, everybody load in. And just that was enough to even show us and everybody else that that kind of stuff is possible. So when you get, you know, 10 squads to all queue at the exact same time, you're going to hit probably 6 out of those 10 are going to end up matching up together, just because the way the thing is preferring to match a 5-pack versus a 5-pack, a 5-man versus a 5-man. Otherwise, it'd be, you see what's getting clubbed even worse than it is now. So that's one, right? Since the beginning, since the very day one patch, a 5-pack has always matched against another 5-pack way better than matching against singles or duos or triples or quads or whatever, right? So
I mean, this is
they got that right. They got that really good.
They've got it right, but there's also an issue with matchmaking right now, where, like, when I'm 5 stacking, it's like I'll match up with Namaste, or like a team that's just not very good. That we'll either be the Seals against Namaste or we will be Seal clubbing. That's what it kind of feels like. It's this huge range, and it also takes like 5 minutes sometimes for us to find a game. So it's a little frustrating that way. That way, but sorry, getting ahead of myself thinking about that. I do. So I want to take it.
It's just a snapshot in time.
I want to take it back to
this too shall pass.
Operation Ace. They finish up. They're running the 5-mans weekly, and then the New Republic tournament happens, and those guys, they work so hard to make this tournament happen. This is like the most ambitious tournament that we've seen so far in Squadrons, where they got open-ended as many teams as they could. They ended up getting I think 24 teams. They kind of tried their darndest to have these teams, and I mean they're doing more than just matching up in the hour. They have the two guys in a Discord chat, counting down, trying to force the sync, trying to get that matchup, and it struggled to happen though, and it showed the shortcoming of this system, I feel like, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And
no, you're right. And even in fleet battles or even in 5-mans, we found out pretty quickly that you can throw a bunch of squads into the pot like some chili, and you will get some good matchups. But when you try to do one squad versus one exact other squad, and try to get just those two squads to match up, that's where we run into trouble. It's pre-custom matches, and sometimes they'll never match, and that's just the sad truth. I've stayed up till 3 a.m. sometimes with 10, 15 people in chat trying to match one squad against an exact other squad, and just one Canadian or one European or one guy in Moscow, and all of a sudden the whole thing just doesn't work. So it's that's another blessing with these custom matches coming up. We won't have to worry about any of that stuff.
It's just so weird though. It's like I will, if Namaste is searching and I am searching, we will match up in 4 seconds. Like it just, I don't know what it is, just because like maybe because I play with like people who are like one in the hundreds or something, and they have higher ones, so it just boom finds us so fast. But other times it's just so weird the way the matchmaking seems to take into account geography or that hidden score that's behind the scenes that you don't know about. I mean, the problem that I see with it, and I don't mean to be critical of the game because I think they are doing so much, and maybe they underestimated the player base or something, but they kind of hung their hat on this matchmaking system, and it's just not what they promised it to be. So it's a little frustrating in that end for me when they were just kind of like, it's gonna be whatever. But
Well, I think that was another motivation for 5-mans early on, because we knew it was behind the scenes skill based matchmaking.
Yes.
So we're like, okay, behind the scenes. So no visible MMR. So no visible matchmaking rank that you can visibly tie people with. So we're like, okay, so something like 6-mans and 4-mans, where you're doing a scrim system to develop it out of the game ranking system. We're going to need that for sure, because if it's a hidden skill-based MMR, it's behind the scenes, then we can't track it. There's no API. There's validate any of that stuff. So we're going to need to do something like 6-mans earlier than we probably need to or want to, just to be able to have any kind of competitive sanctity at all. Yeah, you know what I mean? So really just bringing that system in probably 6 months before it was actually needed. We just turned it into a scrim zone for a while, and it's slowly evolving into an event center as well. So once we pull off a couple more of these small events before customs, we'll have to see what it turns into next year, but theoretically the league should be firing up here in 2021. I know there's plans from the Legions guys about the World Cup as well next year in 2021. So,
shoot, man, I could be on Team Canada. Oh my God.
Yeah, man.
There's not that many Canadians playing. Yeah. Wow, that's a chance. I mean, I'll do my best to represent the country. I don't know how proud I'll make them, but I'll do it. So this is one thing too that was pretty awesome. So the New Republic tournament, it struggled getting those forced matchmakings. So those guys, bless their hearts, they worked so hard to make that tournament work, and they figured out a way to just have people make it more score based, and they got through it, and it was a great event. But I really think that the developers were watching, because almost 2 days later, right after the event finishes up, they must have seen what was happening, kind of how the community kind of came together around it, and they announced private matches, custom matches are coming out in December. The Defender and the B-Wing, they're adding it, and the new map, new component. These are all things that were kind of unheard of, like even a week earlier. We didn't know if those things would be possible, even if we would. And they they went above and beyond. It's like I said, they were listening to everything that people said, and they were like, yeah, let's just give them that. That'll be great. They'll be happy, and we are. So I mean, I'm floored by it. Like, I feel like the whole community was kind of like, is this real?
Yeah, I don't think, because that stuff takes a while, right? Like, you don't just make announcements about new assets being generated and whole new mechanics coming in the game out of nowhere, right? So I don't know if, I think that stuff like that pushed him over the edge, and even hearing about us force queuing and having fun doing it. And honestly, that was the psychology of some of that stuff anyway. We just smash our heads together, show that we're having fun like a bunch of dummies, and eventually, oh, let's give the poor guys something to, let's give them some candy or something, right? And so like that was a little bit of the psychology of it, but I don't think in the long run that even if we didn't do anything at all, potentially we should not underestimate what shutdowns did to just business operations in 2020. And so, like, for instance, if you announce a game for October 2nd, you're going to push that game out October 2nd, especially if your publisher is who the publisher. Right? That doesn't matter if the cake is finished, half baked, 3/4 baked, 1/4 baked. So to me, this could be a feature that was in the original 1.0 build that was taken out, put back in, taken out again, wasn't quite ready, rescinded, and put back in again. Right?
Oh, you're right. That's very possible. For instance,
it
didn't work
2
out.
2 days is too short of a time. 2 days is way too short of a time to even implement the decision to push those changes in. So I think the B-Wing was probably planned the entire time.
I think
it's probably built right now, and it's just waiting to get implemented as an asset pack. But I know from other space games, building ships in that environment, in that engine, making them work and everything is longer than even from now until the end of the break, or until Christmas or whatever. So I think a lot of that stuff was already there and released it. And when the numbers on global viewership were down below 100 people, and sales maybe weren't, then it's like, boom, let's kick it into high gear, announce some stuff, throw it on a 40% sale on Steam right now, and a bunch of other things. Let's work with the community on some stuff. Let's do this and that. So they made a big push, and I think it's making a huge comeback because they're triple the numbers this week than they were in previous weeks. So I think they're doing good.
Oh, the numbers have been off the charts. Like, I usually am playing pretty early before I go to work. Sometimes like even 6 a.m., 7 a.m. Before we were seeing as low as 400 people, 350 people playing. Now, at that same time, you'll see 1,000 people. So on the Steam charts, that's effectively tripled the base of like those. I mean, it's a small amount for triple, but still, like to get the numbers up that much in a short period of time, just from these announcements. It was holidays in North America. People are still locked down all over the world, so there's just a lot of factors, and people are getting eyes on the game again and have time to play it. So I think December too, with the updates of the new ships, private matches coming down the road here, and some other balancing, and I think we're gonna see growth of the game all through December. That's what I predict seeing, especially with through the Christmas break, more people coming to the game. January it might die down, especially with now what we're seeing too. Those announcements only added so much hype to the game, and there are so many events coming up over the next little while here.
Yeah, man.
I feel like there's been probably 3 or 4 tournaments added.
Yeah, no, there's at least 3 events, official events that I know of in December. 1 or 2 already piped in for January. But honestly, I wouldn't, I think potentially we won't even see the implications of these new ships, the custom matches, what we can do with them until mid-January. And then all of a sudden, the new metas are going to start to surface. But it's going to take people a while to get back from vacation. New players are going to come, old players are going to drop. People are going to go to college. People are going to get out of college. So, like, various things are going to happen to change that player base from what it is now till after what a January and February player base looks like. So I think, I don't know. I don't think we've seen even the bottom of the iceberg, let alone the middle or the tip.
You must feel like a proud papa, almost like a proud papa to see all these. You're like, you had this dream for the Calrissian Cup, and it's just, it's just all these other tournaments too are like they're all like, yeah, we need to all build towards this big, this huge tournament, and I think these smaller events I think are really helping to add that hype, because you've got You know, that with the casual crate, fleet battles night, Cup of Mandalore, the Operation Ace Open, all coming up in December, and an open-ended Squadrons World Cup at some point in the future. I mean, it's all great to see. And then as well, we should talk about the event we've got going on here December 5th too, the Top Gun 2v2 dogfight coming out.
Yeah, that's gonna be a fun little. It's one of those. I guess you'd categorize it as a fun competitive event, not a competitive event. So, if for instance, it's not a super sweaty head-to-head match, it's kind of it's one of the last force queue type events that we're gonna do, but it's not even technically a force queue event. It's a 2v2 duos kill race, so both teams on the same side, fighting the same enemies in the same team against the same guys on the same map during the same match, and with the same opportunities. So it's a kill race. How many kills can you get? You and your buddy, Goose and Maverick versus the world. And it really doesn't matter if all four of you get smashed or do the smashing yourself, because it's just someone's going to come out with more kills and less deaths than the other guy. So really, it's a kill race similar to what they do in Warzone and other even battle royale games. Shroud or Ninja will load it, split up, and see who can stack the most points.
I think this is a great idea. This is something that's I think this style of game, this style of competitive tournament really lends itself to these kind of games, I think, too. And I think we're going to see more of these. I think a monthly event like this would be really awesome moving forward. If people kind of did it, you could have like a duos champion every month or whatever. That'd be kind of a fun thing to do, and maybe have a cup for that to itself. When did you get the idea to do this event?
We've been tossing around, like I said, various formats for months now, literally months, since before the game came out. And of all the different formats and everything we got going on, when we're looking at executing something small, tight, concise with a clear winner, it turns out that something like this kill race is one of the tightest things we got, because of that one factor that we can't guarantee a head-to-head. If we could guarantee a head-to-head between European-based Remnant Squadron, American-based Skull Squadron, then it'd be a different story. But if we can't do that, then a lot of it's moot. And so the fanciest point system we could create, and the nicest way to do something like a Code Red style tournament, even then, they're just pretty loose and floppy. Whereas at least with this kill race style, even though it's not really competitive because you're not head to head, you're next to your enemy, right?
I mean, it's still head to head. Like when I've done them on Warzone, and you're still, it's still head to head. You're looking at how many. It still feels head to head. You're competing against them for sure. And I think in the dogfight, because the thing in the dogfight that really limits it more than in Warzone though is that there's only 30 kills total.
Yes.
So
and there's only 30 chances to get those
30
points.
So it's more. It's more of a. It's a kill race in a more limited way because it's finite, I guess. You can't, 15 or 16 is the win. Sure. So you both want to get 8 kills, basically, you and your teammate, as fast as you can. Yeah. And then that. I don't know. Yeah. Because then it's locked down if you have those.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, we've been talking about formats for months, and this 2v2 thing came up. I don't even think I'm the guy that originated. It was probably just somebody was like, "Yo, why don't we try doing a 2v2 on the same side like they do in Warzone?" And it was like, "Oh, that actually works. That's actually very smooth, and we can execute on that very well." And a bunch of other things, like a bunch of checkboxes. So I think we're very close to getting custom matches, and might as well do a little end of style, fun exhibition just to showcase some of these top highlights that we've kind of assembled up in 5-mans. And I think it's a good way to really have a little reset before the customs come in and people get settled in their squads and never come back and see the light of day again. And I think besides the competitions, a lot of servers will be able to do their own thing now, where they can literally do little mini 1v1s or 2v2s or 5v5s. Bigger, larger, more well put together squads and servers like Grey Squadron will be able to do everything we're doing at 5-mans on a better and more organized platform. You know what I'm saying? So the need for something like 5-mans goes in some ways, unless people are trying to hit that above the in-game rankings, which I think is where 5-mans brings value again, which would be after we have customs, when we can do official custom scrims. Where do we put that leaderboard? Like, where Sandlot with the bleachers and the big leaderboard to show the scoreboard. And I think somewhere like Five Man's is a place we can do that because we have the bot set up. We have stuff ready to go for the leagues to implement that shit right into the system.
That's gonna be
it's
great.
Just about,
that's what it needs. It needs like once it's you get that figured out with the where people are ranked, it needs to have sort of like like football premiership, Div 1 where and then the top 5 team, maybe the top 5 teams move from the division below move up, and the bottom 5 of Div 1 move down to Div 2, that kind of thing. They switch, so it keeps moving. You have a reason to move forward, and as more competitive teams are added, you can have more divisions, and then you'll have naturally teams moving through them. You can have seasons, and it just gives more life to the game outside of just the ranked. But this is interesting too because who knows what's going to happen here on Operation 2 when it drops on December 2nd.
Yeah.
Fleet battles could completely change the way the makeup of it. The meta could change. It may give, who knows if there's different frigates out there. It may give viability to, who knows, different ships may be better at that point. So it could that'll be interesting too. It could change the game to dogfight. It could be a ranked dogfight mode for all we know. Who knows what's happening in Operation 2?
I think the only guarantee is change, right?
Yes.
So whatever metas we've dealt with up until now, whatever dope plays people got on their belts now, if we look back a month from now or even 2 months from now, we'll be laughing at all of our earlier strats, right? And our earlier metas, stuff that people were like, oh, we don't even do that anymore because this and. Right.
It's so funny though. At one point in this game, like maybe in the first month, TIE bombers were OP.
Yes.
And then within a week or two later of that, they were no longer OP, and the New Republic was OP. Like a big part of that was the tournament too. We saw that as well. I think that people knew before, but there was still some misconception if the bomber was OP. But that tournament, I think, rubber stamped for sure that the New Republic is the better one. And then now we're seeing the A-Wings specifically be the meta, and maybe the X-Wings for a short bit right now with the boost extension kit. But it's funny, the meta's changing, and I think the competitive scene, you kind of see it firsthand, like, oh, okay, this is actually where we're at right now here. When you see the best pilots out there and what they're doing, not just on stream, like, it's one thing to see Namaste do it, but it's when you see in a competitive game what people are doing really kind of gives you a better idea.
Yeah, man, I think you're totally right. That like some of that stuff won't even be exposed until the skill gap is very small. So, for instance, when you have 2 teams of 5 players and they're all pretty damn good movement pilots, they can all retro drift, they can all aim and shoot very well. Then all of a sudden, those little tiny differences between ships, factions, maps, spawn points, whatever, become very apparent. Like what was a very unnoticeable difference in a pub match now becomes a very noticeable difference when you have 2 top players doing the exact same thing against each other in slightly different builds, slightly different ships. Now it's like, oh damn, well he shouldn't have died. Why'd he die there? Oh, this one little thing is maybe OP or whatever. But you wouldn't have found that out until you actually pit the best teams against the best teams, and then there's less difference between how good they are with movement and how good shooting. And now all of a sudden it's like, yo, how come the New Republic's getting to 90% win rate the New Republic tournament? And it's not because everybody was picking random, and a lot of times it was just Empire was just losing, and it didn't matter who was on that team. If you had a good competitive team that was Empire and a good competitive team that was New Republic, there's just a good chance that New Republic is going to come out the other side. And people don't know if that's shields. They don't know if it's just because the A-Wing itself is OP or whatever. But the developers are probably stoked that they have people like us to find the little tiny when the skill sets are very, very similar. You know what I mean? That when there's not very much difference between the pilot skills, then all of a sudden everything's a little bit more clear. Jousts are a little bit more one-to-one. You can kind of see what's going on there and be like, whoa, that's interesting.
So now, what is it looking like for Calrissian Cup? What's the update on it? What's the current state of it? How is it looking as of right now? We're at the beginning of December. What is the timeline? What are you thinking of it? Give us the update here to finish up.
That's a good question. I think as far as all that, there's no reason to be working on something for months and months, and then with the dawn about to rise, go and just be like, oh, we gotta hurry up and do it while it's still dark. And you're like, dude, the sun's getting ready to come up in like seconds. Why don't we just wait for another couple more seconds, right? So I think everybody that's associated with Calrissian Cup, all the planning committees, all the various people from all the servers that are associated with it, I don't think anyone's really fighting rush into it. So I think probably by as early as next week we'll have some announcement changes, but most likely it's looking like everybody wants to push that to January. Because again, like I said, we're barely going to get this patch before Christmas, like actual holiday break, no matter what religion, whatever, but holiday break, the devs aren't going to be working during the holidays. So they're going to give us what they got right before holiday. We get that, we're going to be complaining about it and we're going to demand patches, right? So then it's going to get balanced past again in early January. So even if we say backed it all the way out to January 16th or January to 23rd, I don't know if even then we're looking at a totally stable game in the same way it will be 6 months from now. You know what I'm saying? So that'd be the earliest we could even expect, I think a stable experience from fleet battles, meta wise, ship wise, component wise, balance pass wise. Like we'd be wild to start the Calrissian Cup back in June and July, and then rush into it right away, and not wait until we have the tools in our hands and know what the tools feel like, know what we're having, right, and then be able to see what the people want to do and do it well. That's really the whole thing.
And I think basically from the perspective of someone who's, maybe they just heard about the Calrissian Cup through the Reddits or wherever, and they don't know what's going on, that's a great update so that they can understand. You want the game to be stable. There's no point to say, hey, it's this day right now, until you actually know that everything's in order to make it happen on a specific day. So maybe January, maybe February, maybe when the time is perfect, that's when it'll happen. So that's a great update. I appreciate hearing that. And,
for sure. And I think we'll probably know more, and we'll definitely be putting out announcements as soon as we do. But it's, the whole thing's a big group project. So it's not just me at the helm. I might have helped come up with a name and the kind of the feel behind it, but there's a lot of people behind the execution of it, and it takes a lot of people to pull this off. So, basically we need to go through some channels, get some votes going on. But I think everyone's pretty much agreed that if we want it to be the thing that was envisioned at the beginning, let's not rush into it. So I don't think the original date of December 10th is holding a lot of water right now. It's coming up. We could force it, but I don't think we're going to get private matches on the 9th. And even if we got them on the 9th, I don't.
Yeah, we'll just go. Yeah, there's no point in going right away. But now, we've got a weekly podcast so that we can update on the Calrissian Cup and these things as we go along.
There you go. Yeah.
So I think that's pretty much everything here for this episode. I think I appreciate going over this getting over the history and kind of catching us up to where we are right now with competitive squadrons. If someone's new, they kind of probably found out a lot that they didn't know. We'll put links below to the different tournaments and different subreddits and everything we've talked about in the description for this video on YouTube and everywhere else here. We'll be back with another episode, probably talking about this next update coming up this week on the, what is it, December 2nd. We've got the 4.0 update. Is that what they've called it?
Yeah, I think so.
So
we got new ships, all kinds of stuff.
New ships. So we'll go all over that. We'll probably have a good guest who can break it down with us. So Greenfoxleader, anything else here before we sign off?
No, man. Yeah, good little start to a nice little talk where we can update people. And, maybe eventually we'll come back to some single player stuff or some other stuff, but all this news and whatnot's right in front of our face. So, might as well stay topical with it here for a while. I like the direction, and I'm excited to keep talking about stuff. There's a lot of shit to talk about, so might as well keep going.
All right, well, we'll catch everyone next time. Thanks a lot for checking out this one, and we'll catch you next time on the Star Wars Squadrons Podcast. Have a good one.
517 to scanner control. 517.